12,000 years ago, the Earth had just undergone a major climate change. The Ice Age was coming to an end. Temperatures were warming very quickly. In a few dozen centuries, 2/3 of the ice cap melted away. The oceans rose 120 meters, shaping the continents. A less harsh, more stable climate settled in. Plants and animals multiplied. For Homo sapiens, the hunter-gatherer, life had never been so easy. These people were resourceful, curious, and imaginative, always prepared to take advantage of nature. They were as intelligent as we are. They had the same brain as ours, the same heart, the same genes. Biologically, they were exactly the same as us. 3 or 4 million humans shared the planet. It was the golden age of the hunter-gatherer.
Societies of hunters and gatherers had larger areas to expand and subsist in. Therefore, they generally relaxed their reproduction and had more kids, more people. So in a way, by 11,000 years ago, the world of hunters-gatherers was full in all the continents.
The first signs of a new era appeared. Man, who had always submitted to nature, was preparing to control it. He had already taken the first step. He had domesticated the wolf, a wild animal, making it the dog, a faithful companion. Between the two, there was no ambiguity. Man was the master. But this had taken time, several hundred years. This was a world which evolved slowly. Jean-Denis Vigne, of the Musée National d'Histoire Naturelle in Paris, is an archaeologist specialized in animal domestication.
Il est possible que se soit instauré progressivement une espèce d'entraide entre les loups et les hommes qui avaient à peu près les mêmes gibiers, des stratégies de chasse très évoluées, des hiérarchies sociales qui pouvaient, à la limite d'une certaine manière, réagir en complémentarité. Et le chien, finalement, est rentré dans ce système social de l'homme, peut-être autant que l'homme a souhaité qu'il y rentre pour lui apporter une aide pour la chasse, ou bien simplement de la chaleur, puisque c'est un très bon chauffage, un chien. En hiver, ça chauffe bien quand on dort tous ensemble.
The mythical image of the nomad is that of the noble savage who travels and discovers unknown territories. Actually, Homo sapiens traveled by necessity. It was a question of survival. He stayed longer in places where the food supply was good.
Ce nomadisme a été en fait très diversifié. Quelquefois, c'était un vrai nomadisme avec des arrêts tous les 3 jours. Et d'autres fois, c'était des arrêts vraiment saisonniers avec déjà une espèce de petite implantation.
Homo sapiens looked for the best places to live. The richer the territory, the less he had to travel. And that territory was his. He defended it.
Les derniers chasseurs européens se battaient. Et probablement qu'ils se battaient parce qu'ils présentaient eux-mêmes des tendances vers la sédentarité. Autrement dit, ils voulaient s'installer dans certains endroits où ils pouvaient chasser, pêcher en toute tranquillité, cueillir des plantes. Donc, on s'est battu pour avoir les endroits les plus intéressants.
One area in particular set the stage for this quiet revolution, which would forever change man's relationship with nature. The Fertile Crescent in the Near East, a strip of land blessed by the gods. the only place in the world where wild wheat and barley grew. A heaven for hunter-gatherers. A group of nomads arrives from elsewhere. A culture shock awaits them. They have come across a hamlet of round huts with stone walls. These nomads didn't know that they were looking at the first houses. Humans had decided to settle here permanently, to create a village. They had turned their backs on the nomadic ways in favor of a sedentary lifestyle. This was remarkable. To succeed, the first sedentary peoples had to maximize their territory's riches. They had to be extremely effective hunter-gatherers. On the ground were heavy containers made from carved-out stones. These sedentary people knew things that the nomads did not. What had prompted the people who had built these stone houses to become sedentary? Was it choice or necessity? Stuck between the sea and the desert, the Fertile Crescent hunter-gatherer didn't have a choice. He had to stop and make do with the land he had, or fight to conquer new territory. At least, this is what archaeologist Ofer Bar Yosef of Harvard University in the United States believes.
In certain situations, people were restricted in their possible movement. And maybe one of the best examples is in the Near East. We have the Mediterranean Sea on one side and the Syro-Arabian desert on the other side. So the living places were much narrower than in other places. You had to settle down and take care of your environment.
For other experts, geography and climate were not the only imperatives that forced humans to settle in one place. Archaeologist Jean Guilaine, a professor at the Collège de France, specializes in the Neolithic.
Mon sentiment personnel, c'est que les changements climatiques accompagnent. Mais dans ce cas particulier, je pense que c'est l'homme, c'est sa volonté, son désir de changer qui ont été à la base de la néolithisation. Autrement dit, pour moi, la néolithisation, c'est essentiellement un changement culturel. Un changement d'optique, c'est la maturité intellectuelle de l'homme qui fait qu'à un moment de son évolution, Sapiens a décidé de changer de vie.
Historians long believed that it was agriculture that had caused nomads to adopt a sedentary life. Untrue. 12,000 years ago, agriculture did not exist. The first villages were hunter-gatherer villages, but these were highly evolved hunter-gatherers. In the stone huts, the nomads from afar discovered a veritable pantry: seeds, flour, legumes. The Fertile Crescent people were incredible gatherers. Their main source of food was plants. They were fond of pistachios, almonds, lentils, chickpeas, and berries. They could grind wild barley and wheat into flour.
If you go back to a place like Ohalo in the Sea of Galilee, the large collection of plant remains clearly indicates that these people were exploiting wheat and barley already 23,000 years ago, and even making some kind of a pita bread.
Bread wasn't invented by cultivators. It was invented by hunter-gatherers. These findings come to us through microscopic clues that by miracle came down through the ages. Molecules of fermented flour in the cracks of a grinding stone. Charred fragments of cereals embedded in a plate.
One of the more recent discoveries, we know that fig trees were already domesticated at that time, at the early days. And it's not impossible that the idea of planting fig trees, which you do by cutting branches and pushing them into the ground, maybe started much earlier, somewhere around 13 12,000 years ago. So by the time you come to the early villages around 11,000 years ago, figs were already available. But figs are not staple food. They're more like having your ice cream at the end of the dinner.
Staying in the same location provided greater stability, greater security. Even though they still feared nature, the settlers tried to avoid and protect themselves against its excesses and to make their lives more predictable. Stone houses withstood wind and fire. Skin tents were not as resistant. Nomads knew that they could lose everything overnight, that life was precarious. What was there yesterday might not be there tomorrow. This uncertainty was precisely what sedentary peoples tried to ward off. Faced with chaos, the sedentary way of life was a reassuring, organized, and stable solution. Security wields a tremendous seductive power over men and women. In the Fertile Crescent, the hunter-gatherers gradually settled in on a permanent basis. "11,000 years ago, at the heart of the Fertile Crescent stands a monument reminiscent of Stonehenge in England. But it is 6,000 years older, even more impressive, and artistically more elaborate. It is Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a sanctuary built by hunter-gatherers, a place of pilgrimage to honor the ancestors. Megaliths that stand 5 meters tall. These stones form a series of concentric circles. 250 stelae are still buried underground. At first glance, the sheer size of the work is staggering. Erecting this site required the work, collaboration, and ingenuity of hundreds of men who needed to be housed and fed. For the time, a project of titanic proportions. Klaus Schmidt of the Berlin Archaeological Institute is overseeing the dig.
From the botanical remains, we can understand that the society in this time still was on the level of hunter-gatherers. So that's surprising. We would expect maybe settled societies, farming societies, which have the power the manpower to do such things, but it still was on the level of hunter-gatherers. That was a surprising result of the excavations.
Before the discovery of Göbekli Tepe, it was not believed that hunter-gatherers could build such a monumental work, requiring such substantial technical knowledge. For scientists, Göbekli Tepe is the product of a complex social organization, bringing together many villages across a vast territory. It is a society united by the same beliefs and capable of rallying hundreds of workers around a common goal. Very organized hunter-gatherers.